The rain hit the kitchen window like small stones. My phone was still warm in my hand when my daughter said it. "Mom, you need to leave. This is Marcus's house." She stood in the doorway. Her arms were crossed. The hall light flickered above her. I heard a low hum in the walls, the kind you feel more than hear. I looked at the grocery bags on the floor. Strawberries leaked red on the paper. I didn't move. I didn't shout. I just watched my girl make a choice she would not be able to undo. To understand how I ended up holding my daughter's face between my palms in an ICU 5 weeks later while she learned to breathe around a machine, we have to go back to the first wire I ever pulled through that rotten wall. The year Ava married Marcus, the house was a sagging gambrel with a porch that tilted like a tired smile. You could see daylight through the attic boards. The realtor called it full of potential. I called it sick. But my hands know sickness. I grew up with a father who fixed everything by understanding the hidden parts, water lines, gas pipes, the old cloth-wrapped wires that slept like snakes behind plaster. He taught me to listen before I touched. We bought the house with Marcus's inheritance and my credit score. The bank loved us because I looked like someone who pays her debts. Ava moved into the front bedroom with sunlight that painted her skin gold in the mornings. Marcus measured spaces like he was cutting a suit. He used words like value, credit, equity. I used words like joist, GFCI, load. I worked double shifts at the bakery and came home to pull wire until my fingers burned. We did the permits properly because I made us. Panel upgrade, dedicated circuits for the kitchen, arc fault protection in the bedrooms. I insisted on it. We passed inspection with compliments. The inspector wrote, "Workmanship above average" on the form, and I taped that paper inside the breaker door like a blessing. We finished the in-law unit in the back, my little square of dignity. I told myself I'd stay until they had a child, until late-night feedings and a crib against plaster. I told myself I was a bridge, not a load-bearing wall. For 2 years, we were almost a family. Sundays were loud Marcus roasted chicken the way his mother taught him, and I made salad with too much lemon. Ava laughed easily then. She texted me pictures of paint swatches in the middle of my shift, sage or fern. She wore the apron my mother had embroidered and danced barefoot on the new hardwood I'd sanded and sealed until it reflected us all like a lake. Then the baby didn't come. Months turned to tests, turned to words like unexplained. Ava's light dimmed to a pilot. Marcus started working later. He stopped saying equity. He started saying, my investment. One morning, a contractor showed up with a loud truck and louder music. He said he was here to start an attic conversion. I went still. There were no permits posted. The permit window was empty. My daughter said it was just quotes. The man dragged an orange extension cord to the attic hatch. He called it temporary power. He stapled it fast and crooked. I wrote a note and taped it to the panel in red ink. Do not add new loads without permit. 2 days later, the note was gone. 2 days later, the note was gone. The insult came dressed as a party. The house was full of neighbors. Someone poured punch. Someone made a joke. My daughter stood near the island and said it like an announcement. She said I would move out by Friday so they could use the full footprint. She said my kitchenette would make a great breakfast nook. The laughs were light and quick. People looked anywhere but at me. I put my glass down. I spoke as if the floor might crack if I raised my voice. I said the kitchen stood because my hands built it. I said the roof no longer leaked because my back carried it. He smiled at everyone and said, "It's our decision." The hum in the walls felt louder. I walked out. I needed to stand alone and stop shaking. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street smelled like wet cement and cut grass. The porch lantern buzzed tiny sparks inside the glass, a moth caught in a jar. Decision points aren't loud. They're quiet as a key turning. I drove to the county recorder's office the next morning with my folder. Bank transfers for materials, receipts in my name. The contract Marcus had begged me to sign when we bought the house, a short-term promissory note, so the bank would overlook his debt to income. "You'll get it back in a year," he'd said, eyes wet, hands on mine. "You know I'm good for it." We had never recorded it. We had never needed to because I believed my daughter's love was collateral enough. I recorded it now. "Mechanic's lien," the clerk said, tapping nails the color of cherries. "You're entitled to it if you provided labor and materials and weren't paid." She slid the file back to me with a seal that felt like a new spine. I canceled the autopay on their property tax. I stopped covering their overdraft oopsies because we forgot the electric bill. I called a lawyer named Darden who smelled like rain and kept her hair in a neat bun that said, "Try me." "You can be forced out if you don't protect your interest," she said. Recording the lien was smart. "We'll also file a notice of life tenancy for your unit based on your contribution. It's aggressive, but they've left you no choice." "Aggressive would be calling the inspector," I said. "Their guy is running unpermitted electrical in an attic with old cellulose. It's a tinderbox." "Do it," she said. "Let them call you vindictive. It's safer than letting them turn your work into a funeral." I dialed the number like I was dialing 911. The city sent a man with a clipboard 2 days later, a man whose eyes flicked from the orange cord dangling from the attic hatch to the breaker panel with my taped blessing inside. He touched the panel door, read the sticker, looked at me. "House looks good down here," he said quietly. "Upstairs is a different story." He posted a yellow stop work order at the foot of the attic ladder. Marcus came home from work, saw it, and ripped it in half with theatrical disgust. He called me a word that made a neighbor's curtain twitch. "Keep it up," I said calmly from the doorway, "and I'll make sure your contractor loses his license." "You're not family," he spit. "You're a liability." That night, someone turned the hallway light on and off, fast, the flicker jerky, frantic. The hum in the walls sounded like bees swarming a dark place. I slept with my shoes by the bed. Escalation comes in waves. All at once, the ocean is at your throat. First came the text from Ava. "You're being cruel. I need space. Marcus is right. This is his." Then the letter from a mediator whose logo had a tree and the phrase "conscious uncoupling," as if a mother and daughter can politely dissolve blood. Then the smear. "She's unstable," Ava told her aunt. "She's trying to ruin us. You know how Mom gets control freak." The words trickled through the family group chat like acid. The cousin who'd borrowed my car suddenly couldn't return my calls. The neighbor who always took my sourdough starter waved from across the street and pretended to be late. Marcus's sister, Karina, arrived one afternoon with a peace offering flowers, with a card that said, "Let's talk like adults." She had her phone face down on the island, recording. I watched the red light blink every time she adjusted her cuffs. I smiled for the camera that I pretended not to see. "Of course," I said. "Let's talk. I'll go first. You and your brother are running illegal power to the attic. Your crew removed the fire stops without replacing them. The new chandelier you ordered has a metal chain, and you plan to hang it from a joist that isn't reinforced. When it shorts, and it will arc to the chain, through anyone touching it, to ground. Or, because you bypassed the ground last week to stop the annoying tripping, it won't. It will just find a body." Karina blinked, said nothing, turned the recorder off 10 minutes later with a sigh loud enough to register on video. The flowers wilted by morning. Ava came to my door 2 nights later with mascara under her eyes and a sweater sleeve pulled over the wrist I used to hold when she was 3 crossing a street. "Just go, Mom," she whispered, not stepping in. "Please, you're making it worse." "If it were just me," I said softly, "I would. But you've turned this house into a weapon pointed at your own chest." "You don't know what it's like," she snapped, "to wake up and not be the woman you planned to be, to fail at the one thing you thought would be easy." Marcus says. She flinched and shook her head. "Never mind what he says. You think leaving me out will make you feel in," I said. "It won't." She stared at the floor. "If you love me," she said, "you'll leave." "If you love you," I said, "you'll listen." She looked up. For a second I saw my little girl under the makeup and the grief. "Stop calling inspectors," she said. "Stop recording things. Stop making it public." "You made it public when you told our neighbors to applaud while you cut me out," I said. "I won't stop documenting a hazard because it embarrasses you." She closed her eyes. "You're going to ruin everything. I'm going to save your life." She laughed, then a hard, brittle sound that made the hair on my arms rise. From a light fixture? From a decision, I thought, but I didn't say it. She left with this parting shot, whispered like a curse. "You always wanted a way to feel superior. Congratulations." I leaned my forehead against the door when it latched. My hands shook so hard I had to sit on them. 2 nights later, the inspector came back with a colleague and a small device that beeped when held near a break in insulation. He documented. He taped the panel with a red tag, "Do not energize hazard." He looked at me and said the thing people always say right before the worst happens. "If they ignore this, it's on them." I believed him because I'm a woman who believes in rules. I believed him because I needed to sleep. They posted a house blessing and cocoa for Christmas Eve. They posted it to friends and to a list that read like a guest book. They planned to reveal the new attic studio. The stop work order was folded and tucked under the runner on the stairs in their video. The fairy lights on the rail looked like a dare. The house filled with coats and perfume. The refrigerator hummed. The panel hummed louder. I stood in my small unit and waited for my courage. Then I took my folder and opened my door. The living room glowed. You could smell hot dust and pine. He stood near the tree, holding a glass, telling a story with all his teeth. When he saw me, he lifted his glass higher. "Look who decided to join us," he announced, voice bright. "Our honored guest, Elena, the inspector. Here to shut down our cocoa?" Some laughter quick, nervous, Ava stood on the stairs, fairy lights kissing her ankles. For a second, my breath caught. She was so beautiful, it made me ache. Then I saw the cable stapled along the baseboard up the stairs, a violation disguised as garland. "Good evening," I said, holding my folder but not opening it. "I'm here for Coco and Sanity." Marcus grinned, reading an audience. Sanity. You hear that, folks? Sanity is when you call city officials on your own family because you don't like their design choices. Sanity, I said, is when you don't kill people to have a pretty office. The room shifted. People glanced at each other. Someone turned the music down a notch. The hallway light flickered. Hum rose. The inspector's red tag on the panel had been peeled back and retaped at a different angle, careless. "You need to leave," Ava said, voice steady, face pale. "Tonight's important." "It is," I said, "because you're going to plug in too much, or flip the wrong breaker, or hang metal from a live chain." "Stop," she hissed. "You're humiliated because we asked you to move out. Don't pretend this is about safety." "It's always been about safety," I said, "and dignity." Karina slid between us with a smile, like a razor. "Maybe Elena could watch from the back," she cooed. "We wouldn't want her to get overwhelmed." "Let's just," Marcus raised his voice as if conducting. "Let's show everyone the attic. Come on, babe. People are waiting." Ava swallowed, turned, climbed. The crowd followed, buzzing. I followed too, but slower, my fingers trailing the banister, counting the staples like rosary beads. At the top was a hatch with a new trapdoor. Marcus threw it open with a flourish. Ta-da! The attic was a showroom. Rugs, a desk, a chandelier dripping glass like frozen tears. The chain it hung from was wrapped around a beam like a lover's arm. I knew without touching that the junction box under that canopy was wrong. I looked for the inspector's yellow paper. I saw it shoved behind a toolbox, torn. "Plug her in," Karina shouted, already filming. "Go live." "Turn it on," Ava said to Marcus. "Let's end this." He strode to the wall, switched a cheap toggle where I'd specified a commercial-grade dimmer, and put his hand on it like a man ready to christen a ship. "Don't," I said, and my voice did something I didn't know it could do. It filled the room, stopped a dozen throats. "The ground is bypassed. The box is undersized. The staples are wrong. And the chandelier chain is touching the neutral because you nicked the insulation when you—" "Did you hear?" Marcus said to the room. "How she always talks, like God with a manual." He flipped the switch. Light bloomed. People oohed, their relief cheap and fleeting. The chandelier glittered like forgiveness, like proof that mothers worry too much. Someone clapped. Marcus smirked. "See? No ghosts. No fire. No." The next sound was so small we almost missed it. A pop, like a bubblegum snap. Then the smell sharp, metallic. Then the hush that falls when a room decides something is wrong and waits to be told what. The chandelier's glow wavered. The chain hummed. "Ava," I said, already moving. "Don't touch it." But shame is a stronger current than anything a panel can deliver. She reached up, palm flat to glass, to stop its tremble, to prove me cruel and hysterical and wrong. The arc was white and quick. The scream was not. Her body went rigid, arms thrown back by a savage puppeteer, legs a straight line that lifted her onto her toes. For a second, she was a statue carved by lightning. Then the breaker, that old friend I insisted on, tripped with a violent click. She fell sideways like a curtain. Everything fractured the room. The voices. Time. I was on my knees with her before I knew how to move. The chandelier spun in slow, guilty circles above us. "Call 911, I said, because someone had to say the thing that saves a person. I tilted her head gently. "Ava, stay with me. Stay. Breathe. Look at me." Her eyes were open but not seeing. Her chest hitched once, twice, then stalled like a car failing to catch. Somewhere below, the panel ticked, hot. "Back up." I snapped at hands that wanted to touch. "Don't crowd her. Karina, drop the phone. Marcus, shut off the main. The main. The main is..." He looked at the panel door, at the red tape he'd peeled. He ran, for once listening to the only voice that mattered. I put my mouth near Ava's ear. "You stubborn girl," I whispered, because honesty is a kind of oxygen. "You stubborn, beautiful girl. Stay." The paramedics came with their clean, clipped competence and cut the air with scissors and syllables I understood because I had once studied to be somebody else. They asked me for the panel amperage, how long the contact lasted, whether she had a heart condition. I gave them numbers, like prayers. They loaded her and were gone. In the sudden quiet, the chandelier made a soft tink sound, the sound a glass makes when it finally settles. I thank in no rowd as a dade I nay. Hospitals have their own weather. Fluorescent lights buzz like locusts. Machines exhale like animals sleeping at the foot of your bed. The ICU smelled like bleach and threat. I sat beside her and watched the machine mark breaths her body could not yet coordinate. The surgeon, a woman whose eyes looked like mine in a bad mirror, explained the spinal edema, the possibility of recovery, the possibility of not. Marcus cried once loud and theatrical, then went home to handle things. Karina posted a story in black and white font about hug your loved ones. Life is fragile. Our neighbors sent flowers that smelled like guilt. 3 days in, the fire investigator came to my chair and asked questions in a voice that could carry testimony. "You documented concerns," she said, flipping through a folder that looked like mine. "You filed complaints. You recorded the stop work. You told them not to energize. Yes. You installed the original panel and GFCI. Yes. They saved her," she said simply. "The arc fault tripped. Without it, we'd be having a different talk." I thought of my father, of the way he'd lay his palm on a wall and hear the systems inside like a heartbeat. I closed my eyes and saw Ava's body thrown against light. "Is she..." I couldn't finish the thought. "Not to a stranger with a badge and compassion." "She's alive," the woman said. "That's something you did. One people in place vres. In would his place. In matter de doer." The first aftershock was not legal, but social. The guests who had filmed my melodrama now had footage of an accident they couldn't edit to make me the villain. The city issued citations and fines that emptied Marcus's savings. The contractor lost his license. Someone, maybe Karina, maybe a neighbor who belongs to a group chat narrower than a conscience, leaked the investigator's report. The words bypassed ground and illegal load and ignored stop work trended in our little town. For once, the humiliation was a cleansing flood. People crossed the street to touch my elbow and say, "I'm so sorry." And I should have said something when I saw the cord. Marcus tried to blame the inspector, then me, then the light fixture itself. When that didn't stick, he blamed grief. He used the word witch once in a backyard conversation I could hear from my bathroom window. I called Darden. "We don't need vengeance," she said. "We have documents. We recorded the citations, the finding of fault. We turned my lien into a negotiated settlement. I signed papers with hands that tried not to shake. In the end, he could keep his house, and I could keep my life tenancy and my dignity." He moved into the front bedroom alone. The office in the attic stayed dark and empty, its chandelier wrapped in plastic like a body. The second aftershock was quieter. Ava woke into a world she couldn't command with legs. Her arms worked, her hands could crush mine, she could breathe without the machine. But when the therapist asked her to move her foot, nothing obliged. She stared at her body like it was a stranger who had borrowed her dress. That night, I found her awake at 2 a.m., the monitor casting green on her face. The hum in the wall here was made by healing, not danger. "I hate you," she said, without looking at me. "I know," I said. "You want it to be right more than you wanted me to be happy. I wanted you to be alive." She turned her head, eyes like spilled coffee. "At what cost, Mom? At what cost?" "The cost," I said carefully, "because nobody wants a sermon under fluorescent light of you forgiving yourself for hurting yourself. The cost of you choosing me to hate instead of the man who ignored a red tag because he couldn't bear the thought of not shining." She swallowed. "Don't call him a man." "Then call him what he is." She looked at the ceiling. "A boy," she whispered finally. "A boy with money and a crown made of opinions." She brought her gaze back down. "He told me you called the inspector to punish us." "I called the inspector to give you a future. I didn't know it would look like this." Tears slid into her hair. "I said horrible things." "You did," I said. "I can take them." She blinked. One tear leaked. "I told Aunt Lila you were jealous of me." I smiled then, just a tilt of mouth, so she wouldn't slap me with my own softness. "I am jealous of you. You have my face, but a better nose." She huffed, a ghost of a laugh. "Marcus is furious," you recorded the lien. "Marcus can be furious." I wrote that promissory note with his ring still shiny. She pressed her lips together. "Was I always like this?" "No," I said. "You were kind and brave. Then life put a hand on your throat. You scratched the wrong person." Her eyes flicked to my hands folded in my lap. "I told you to get out of his house. You did. It was always yours more than his." "No," I said. "It was ours. I made it safe for all of us. You made it dangerous because you were drowning and you wanted noise instead of help." She looked at the monitor, watched her heart draw straight lines. "If I never walk again," she said, "what will you do with me?" "Make you breakfast," I said. "Measure your doorways. Tell you stories about a girl who once held a breaker in her fist and decided to be the kind of woman who never needed a man to flip it for her." She closed her eyes. The machine sighed. When she opened them, there was the smallest shift, the kind that would be invisible to anyone who hadn't memorized her face. "I'm sorry," she said. The words were brittle. They would get stronger with use. "Me too," I said. "For the things I said when I was scared. For the times I mistook obedience for love." She studied me. "Will you come home?" she asked. "Back to your unit." "I never left," I said. "I just stopped attending the parties." A week later, the therapist put a mirror near her feet so her brain could see a reflection and think it belonged to the limb that refused. Science, like grief, is part magic. She moved her toe a millimeter. We clapped like lunatics. The nurse at the desk rolled her eyes and smiled. "One people in place vres. In would his place. In matter de doer." The last reveal came not in a courtroom or a candle-lit living room, but in a community center with folding chairs and a mic that squealed at the wrong moments. The HOA had called a safety seminar to smooth the collective panic about DIY. They asked me to speak because I was the cautionary tale, and because the fire investigator told them to. I stood under buzzing tubes and told the truth with diagrams. I explained grounds and loads and why a light is not a decoration you can bully into your ceiling because an influencer said so. I told them about permits, about how old houses carry their past like a limp, and if you love them, you respect their pain. In the third row, Karina sat with her arms crossed, her hair like a helmet. Beside her, a stranger pinched her mouth, the way people do when they're trying not to cry. At the back, Marcus stood in the doorway like a boy sent to the principal. He watched me as if I were a person who knew a secret he wanted to buy. When I finished, there was clapping. A woman raised her hand and said, "How do you get your daughter to listen?" The room tittered. I didn't. "You don't," I said. "You teach her to argue with facts. You let her fail at a safe speed. And when she hates you for saving her, you hold the line until she can love you again." The next day, the city posted a guide on their website with my name in small print as a contributor. My phone buzzed with messages from women who had surrendered expertise to charm too many times. I answered some. I saved others for a day when my chest didn't feel like a burnt room. A month later, Ava came home. The ramp up the back steps looked like an apology made out of metal. Her chair was sleek and stubborn like her. We learned new routes through old rooms. We discovered that the sun still hit her favorite chair at 3:10. We ordered a dimmer with a proper rating. We ate dinner at the table I had planed straight over and over until even grief rolled off. On a Tuesday, I found the apron my mother had embroidered. I hung it on a hook in my kitchenette, not as surrender, but as heritage. I opened the breaker panel and slid my palm over the inspection sticker like a benediction, then over the red tag still stuck beside it, kept there as a library of mistakes. Later that week, Marcus asked for a meeting. He came to my unit alone, without Karina's camera or a plan he could sell. He looked smaller, without the house around him, like a suit of armor. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough, "for everything. For the way I talked about you, for telling her it was you or me, for making her choose wrong. Apology accepted," I said. "Forgiveness is not friendship. It's a door that locks behind you." "I'm selling," he said, staring at his hands. "The house. I can't sleep in it. I can't every time I hear the panel hum. I think of," he swallowed. "The settlement gave you life tenancy. You can stay. Whoever buys will have to honor it. I'll pay for proper remediation of the attic." Inspector approved, top to bottom. Darden insured it. "It's the right thing," I said. He nodded and left with his hands in his pockets, like a boy who had finally grown up enough to feel the weight of his own. That night, Ava wheeled herself to the threshold of my unit like a girl sneaking into her mother's room after a nightmare. She looked at the apron. She looked at my hands, which had lost weight but gained nerve. "Want to watch something stupid?" she asked. "A holiday baking show? Only if we make cruel comments about their fondant," I said. She smiled the real smile, the one wide enough to let light out. "Deal." Before the credits rolled, she reached for my wrist. "We'll figure it out," she said, voice strong as wire. "The walking or not walking, the rooms, the doorways, the child or not child, the us. We will," I said, "because we always have." She squeezed. Her fingers were strong. The chandelier upstairs, wrapped and quiet, did not dare to sing. "One people in place vress, in would his place, in matter de doer. If you came looking for a villain you can throw stones at, you'll be disappointed. Life rarely gives clean targets. My daughter tried to cast me out of a house my hands had made. Then that same house returned the charge she put into it. That's not karma. That's physics. Wires don't care if you're sad. They don't soften because you cried while you stapled them wrong. What I know now is this. Love and safety are the same material woven differently. You secure what you love. You ground it. You give it a path when lightning finds it. Sometimes the path is a recorded lien. Sometimes it's a phone call to a city office that will make people call you words that bruise. Sometimes it's a red tag you don't let anyone peel off. A week after Ava took 10 steps in the parallel bars, I went to the closet and took down my wedding ring, the one I stopped wearing long before all this, because I thought it told the wrong story about who I was beholden to. I slid it into a drawer and closed it. Symbolic. Necessary. On the mantle of my little unit now sits a new photo. Me and Ava on the ramp in sunlight. Both of us laughing so hard you can see our molars. Behind us, the house is just a house. In front of us, the path is a clean line drawn with a steady hand. If there's a moral, it's not about revenge. Revenge is hot and sloppy and leaves scorch marks. Vindication is quieter. It looks like an inspector nodding. It sounds like a breaker tripping at the right time. It tastes like cocoa that is finally sweet because nobody is sick in the walls. It feels like your daughter's hand in yours, voltage sapped, circuit closed, current, returning to a place it can rest without hurting anyone. And when the lights flicker now, because old houses will always talk, I don't hear threat. I hear memory. I hear my father teaching me to listen. I hear my own voice in a room full of people saying the first true thing aloud. No. Sometimes the big payoff is public papers served, a contractor shamed, a crowd stepping back to give a mother room. But the payoff I keep is this: a quiet night where the only hum in the wall is the sound of a heart learning to trust again.